Hello. Well, I was just out here doing a little work in the van and I figured I'd make another video. Today's video is going to be on heating and air conditioning. And not, we're talking about stock heating in the Westphalia Vanagon air cooled. Not stuff like this here, which is an electric blanket and the Chinese diesel heater. All right. That's for another video. All we're talking about is stock heat in the air-cooled Vanagon. All right. Okay, another thing too. If you are, please subscribe for one thing. Also, there's very few people subscribing, which is fine. I don't plan to be a big channel or anything. But here in Portland, where I live, in Portland, Oregon, it's November. And it's rainy season, and there's not going to be much work done on the van till springtime probably. So more of the videos are going to be not how-tos, but more about information. If you have just bought your van or want a video on a specific topic, please comment below and I will try to do specific things to help people out. We've only got, say, 17 subscribers right now, so that's pretty easy to answer questions. Anyways, the topic at hand: stock heating and cooling of the air-cooled Vanagon. All right. So when I was growing up in Ohio, VWs were known not to have very good heating. I didn't know anything about air-cooled, so I didn't know why. In Ohio, the heating stuff in an air-cooled tends to rust out. This van I got from Texas, so there was no rust issues, and it was also all intact. One thing you need to have good heating in the Vanagon, air-cooled Vanagon, is everything intact, all the heating system. Now, this has one thing that other buses and older VWs did not have, and that is the fan on the alternator. Now all that stuff up to 2 valves about right here under the wheels, you need to cool the engine. That is something you need on there. You need all the pipes, the heat exchangers, and the fan on the alternator. And what that does is it blows the hot air out and it keeps from heat soak, if you know what that is, on your engine. So that's part of your cooling. But from those valves right here on up, you don't need none of that stuff. And lots of people get rid of it. I wanted heat. And a lot of times the vans in the cooler climates, like Canada, would come with what they call an auxiliary heater. If you have an auxiliary heater, that thing is like gold. Do not take it out. Do not throw it away. But this one did not. It's just a standard Federal Vanagon with everything here. So when I first got it, I wanted everything to work. So one thing you have to have for this to work is an engine that does not leak oil. And why is that? Okay. When I first got this van, it had everything intact except the cables that connected the valves back here to send heat up front were broken. So one of the things I did is I went through and replaced the cables, and I got the flapper, they're called the flapper boxes, back here to work. And that sent heat up to the cabin here. Well, first time I tried it out, the heat came up wonderful. The only problem was it smelled so bad of oil and exhaust that it was just like you'd kill yourself in here. You couldn't use it. It was unusable. So when I finally got it to work was when I got rid of my oil leak and sealed the exhaust. All right. So basically what I'm saying is the heat in here can work, and it works very good. When I did get it to work finally, without the stink, I had defrost, it was fine. It was nice and hot. Um, and that's even more to the point where I had to adjust my cables for the heat box up here and other things. There's a few. It's a very simple system. There's a few things that can go wrong. Um, Up front in the bearings can. It's old. I mean, it's a 40-year-old fan, 50-year-old fan maybe, and the bearings in there will squeal. So you have to take the fan motor out, which is something that can be kind of tough. Um, but it's a basic system. All it is heat from the engine, from the exhaust, gets goes through the heat exchangers, gets hot, gets blown up this way from the alternator fan, goes to the flapper boxes. If they're open, sends it up here. If they are closed, it sends the heat up in the back wheels here, away from the engine. All right. So my basic point of this is the heat in this can work, and it can work really well. Um, Point is having all the equipment installed and all the leaks in the back sealed. Exhaust leaks, your exhaust should be sealed where they are at the um, heat exchangers, and you also should have no oil leaks. Now, one thing I did have to do is after I fixed my oil leak, I had to take the heat exchangers off. I took the hose and soap and water, and I think I used that green stuff. It's in a spray bottle. I can't. Simple Green. Okay. I used that stuff and I poured it all in those heat exchangers, and I hosed it all out, and I got it nice and clean. And when everything was working right and I turned that heat on and we were going down the expressway, it worked really good. Now, one thing I saw, this was a long time ago, back when I started doing this, there was a website. It's probably should be gone. The damn thing should be gone. But it was back when the internet was kind of new and websites were the thing. Well, these people built a website that said, how to get your heat working. And they wrapped header wrap around the pipes, and they did all this kind of insulation stuff. They insulated the they had an old bay window bus. They insulated the bus with spray foam, and they told it how good the thing worked. And what happened, when I guess I didn't go back to the website for a while, but I remember a couple years later hearing that the bus was that bus was basically a rust bucket now, because header wrap, if you know what header wrap is or racing and stuff, you wrap your headers to keep the warmth in. Well, the problem with that header wrap was it would seal in the moisture. So your headers would basically, after a couple of years of driving around in the rain and stuff, you go grab your header and it would just crunch because it had rusted to the point. Well, what I heard about this bus where they insulated it and did all this stuff too is it basically just rusted away, and they hastened the rust with spray foam. You spray foam in your doors and stuff, it'll insulate, but what it does is it locks in the moisture, makes it rust from the inside out. Same with header wrap. So don't do any of that stuff if you want to get your heat to work. Leave it stock, and then just fix the basic stuff. Okay, that's heat. We can get into the heater system later when I start working on this and point out some parts and stuff. But whole point of this is the heat can work. All right, air conditioning. Ha ha ha. If you want air conditioning, this is not the bus to have. Now, was a Texas bus. And even in 1981, you couldn't sell very many vehicles in Texas without air conditioning. So when I bought this bus, it had air conditioning on it. It was a, I think the dealer installed them because it wasn't a factory installed. This van never had air conditioning from the factory, but it was a dealer install. And if you know anything about dealer parts and aftermarket parts, they do not hold up like stock does. So basically, the whole air conditioning system in here was trash. Had a big old compressor tied onto the back of the engine. This engine does 65 horsepower. Stealing even 5 horsepower from it for an air conditioning is I wouldn't do it. It's just asking for trouble. It also they cut a hole in the tin. I'm surprised this thing ran still, but the parts were junk. It had up front part of the air conditioner had two long pressurized hoses that ran all the way to the back. These hoses must have been about, I don't know, 10 foot long. They were long and they were old, and I would not put pressure in those hoses because they'd probably bust. But, anyways, I took all that. One of the things I did, I took all that extra weight off here for the air conditioning. Now, we're in 2024 now. So, you might be able to get yourself, if you absolutely have to, an air conditioning with a very efficient compressor and a better system, all, put in by professionals. I'm not saying it can't work. I'm just saying it's not a good idea. If you want air conditioning in a camper, because you can't use it when you're camping anyways, it's just for driving. If you want air conditioning, do not buy a VW. I'm just, or an air cooled VW. Newer VWs, of course. What am I saying? Air cooled and air conditioning didn't mix that well. Now, I don't want to hear a bunch of stuff about people going, well, I got air conditioning in my VW. I know it can work. I'm just saying, if you're getting this thing to go camping and everything, it's just not a good idea. Anyways, so that's heating and air conditioning. Hope that was a little bit helpful. Again, if there's anything you didn't understand or anything, leave it down in the comments. Um, if we get a community going here, it's going to be small anyways. I should be able to answer all the questions you have. Anyways, thanks and enjoy your VW.